The sun is shining, the birds are singing like crazy. It must be March, here in the Northern Hemisphere anyway. And March is potentially one of those months that I absolutely love and maybe absolutely hate at the same time. By the time March rolls around, we actually go through time change here still. In the US, I wish we would just stay on daylight savings. I love having light as long as possible during the day because I love to get outside and play, but that's another story. But what I really love about March is the fact that spring is coming. It's in the air, we know it, especially where I live up in the Pacific Northwest. Things are starting to happen. You see it everywhere. Flowers are starting to bloom and you're starting to see buds everywhere. All kinds of animals are just playing. We have bald eagles just singing galore lately. They've been landing in our tree right outside of my office window here. It's been absolutely insane. Hard to get anything done when there's two bald eagles in the tree right outside your window and you're paying attention to them. I think that's why I also like getting into the kitchen right now, because I feel like this breath of fresh air is starting to, finally happen again after the longer, colder winter months, even though we did just get through a massive cold snow spell here. Again, a couple inches of snow, nothing serious here in the Pacific Northwest, but still, it's like I'm ready to push all that aside. I'm ready to start moving forward, and I think that's what's so fun about selecting a cookbook that makes you think just a little bit different, because I don't know about you, but we've had a couple months already, and now by March, I'm starting to see things in a different light, and I want to play a little bit. I want to, start experimenting with things and looking at things a little bit differently. So when I ran across this book in my library, I grabbed it simply by the title alone because it was so intriguing to me. It is called Misunderstood Vegetables. What a great name, right? Especially look at that gorgeous photograph on the front. How could you not pick up a book, especially if you're following a plant-based lifestyle? How could you not pick up a book with an image that looks like that and a title that looks like that, right? How to Fall in Love with Sunchokes, Rutabaga, Eggplant, and more. Again, all the things that maybe you've seen in your local market, seen in your grocery store, maybe not quite understood or even had a desire to learn what to do with it. When I pick this book up, I just kind of breeze through the table of contents, maybe read the back, and again, maybe just pick a page at random and see what it's all about. But one of the things that I enjoyed about this book is its description, the author's description of what is a misunderstood vegetable. Number one, any vegetable that you keep walking by in the supermarket or at a farmer's market and you have no idea what the bloody hell to do with it, if you even know what it is in the first place. Or number two, it's a vegetable that you've cooked or eaten once or twice and you think the texture is a little weird, or it's bitter, or you just don't like it, but you may have only had it prepared improperly. And number three, it's a vegetable that you can think of only one or two uses for. Now, how many vegetables have you walked by or maybe even brought into your kitchen once or twice with those thoughts in mind? I know. Becky Sellingut, hopefully I have said the name right there. She kind of had my heart in mind, I think, with this particular book, because I think that's where everybody comes from. But I do remember the days when I was first getting started on a plant-based journey. And, you go into the supermarket or your favorite, local market, wherever you happen to shop for vegetables. And you tend to look around and you see all of this different food, all of these different ingredients sitting there in front of you. And what do? You typically go through and you pick up the things you're familiar with, right? I'll have a few carrots, maybe a few cucumbers. I need an onion. I need maybe some lettuce. You pick up things that you're familiar with, that on a random basis that you know you're going to use day after day, week after week. And then you bypass all those other ingredients, and maybe you don't think about it, at least at first. I know I didn't. I usually was in very fast mode, right? You're running in, running out, trying to accomplish something very quickly. But I do recall that very first day that I looked at something. In fact, I think it was probably with my daughter, right? If you have kids, especially when they're little, right, they tend to wander through the store and pick up things and go, "What is this, mommy?" Right? That's when you start going, "Well, I don't know. I have no idea." And I used to put things like that back on the shelf and go, I have no idea. You know, it says this, whatever that might be, but I really don't know. We don't have time. We have 3 things we need to get done. Let's go. But one day I actually walked through and I picked up an ingredient and I was like, I have no idea what this is. You know, read about it and said, I wonder what you do with it, how you eat it, how you cook with it. Do you eat it raw? Do you eat it cooked? All the different things, you know, went through my mind. But instead of putting it back on the shelf, I actually put it in my basket instead. And I think that kind of changed, especially my approach to plant-based living, because all of a sudden I realized, you know, I ate maybe a half a dozen or maybe even a dozen vegetables regularly. I had all these things that I filled my cart up with each week when I went shopping. I filled up my refrigerator or my pantry with when I got home. And again, I tended to eat and live the same things over and over again. Until that day that I put something slightly different in my cart. And that's what made it so exciting, because when I brought it home, I had to do research. I had to figure out what on earth was I going to do with this product, because I didn't want to just bring it home and, you know, transfer it to the garbage a couple weeks later when it was no longer viable, when it was rotten on my counter. So I immediately got to work and said, what can I do with this? And quite honestly, right now we have just, you know, incredible opportunities to do it, because whatever it is you picked up, head over to Google and Google it and figure out what on earth you can do with it. You're going to find a wealth of information, a lot of different recipes to choose from, and you can kind of play around with it there. Or you can do what I did when I went to my local library and I picked up this wonderful book. I picked it up, again, if you're familiar with the way that I run the Cookbook Club, I like to recommend picking up cookbooks from a library, because it gives you an opportunity to test it out and see if you like the recipes. I do this on a regular basis, so I literally have a stack of cookbooks that I'm constantly playing with. And I find that that's an economical way of doing it, and also a way of, you know, just figuring out what your likes are, what you don't like. Once you start doing that, if you pick a recipe or two and you start playing with it, you're going to pretty quickly discover, do you resonate with this cookbook author? Do you like what they have to say? Do you like the recipes that they create, the foods that they are producing? Or, you know, does it just not suit your taste buds? So great little tip there, something that I highly recommend doing, because this is the best way to find cookbooks that you can store on your shelf and pull out whenever you want. Because if you figure out you like a cookbook, you're also more likely to take it off the shelf and use it. This is one that, again, I started with in the library, and I've migrated to ordering it now, so I will soon have this particular book on my shelf as well, because not only do I like the recipes in there, I like the ideas in there. She goes ahead and sets up her table of contents, sets up the way that she writes the cookbook, in a way that I have become familiar with, because a lot of cookbook authors do it this way, especially when you're talking about vegetables. But I actually find I enjoy this way of trying to figure out what's for dinner. She sets up her table of contents by spring, summer, fall, and winter, for a very good reason, because that's when you're most likely to find these particular products on the shelves or in your local farmer's market. So in spring, as we're rolling into spring, she has recipes for fava beans, burdock, nettles, radicchio, and artichoke. Things I've worked with. I love fava beans. They're not easy to find. In fact, I've been actually looking at how I could throw them into my garden, because I have found that I actually like working with fava beans. They create some fantastic recipes, but they're not readily available. They were actually one of the beans that I picked up one time many years ago at my local farmer's market. They had a big bin of fava beans. I had never worked with them, didn't know anything about them, so I picked up a pound of them and figured out what to do with them. That's what makes it exciting. And again, it's one of those things where if you go to your farmer's market and you pick things up, you can say, I've never cooked with this before. Oh, but here's a recipe for it. Or vice versa, you can flip it around. And summer has squash blossoms. That's high on my list to try for this year. Obviously grown squash in my garden for years, eaten squash obviously for years. But I've never really worked with squash bottoms, and I have a couple of recipes stored up already that I want to try this year. And here again, thanks to this book, I now have a few more recipes working with squash bottoms that I can't wait to try. I think it's going to be very exciting. So with this book, the other thing that I will mention is, again, misunderstood vegetables. You definitely know right off the top here that it's going to be plant-based oriented, right? And I think the thing that I want to stress with this is if you do pick up this book, plant-based is not necessarily equal or in conjunction with the term vegan, and you'll figure that out very quickly. I have actually migrated from vegetarian to vegan to what now I consider to be plant-based for a whole host of reasons. And if you follow me and have watched videos or read any of my articles in the past, you've come along with me on that journey. And what I'm looking for more than anything is nutrition. Nutrition is the ultimate, the top of the heap for me of the reasons why I do what I do. It all started when my father passed away 30 years ago at the age of 54 from a massive heart attack. And it led me on a journey of asking why. Why does that happen? How does nutrition play a part in that? And the more that I found, the more that I discovered that nutrition is, one of the most important things that determines your wellness over time, over a long period of time, over your life. There's such a distinct difference now between health span and lifespan. And it's something that has motivated me since the day my father died. And it's continued on, through the journey of navigating the system with my mom, who spent 30 years with chronic conditions, through lots of people, friends and family that have navigated the healthcare system for various reasons. With every step I've taken, with everything I've learned, I learned that the most important thing is your intuition, what's happening in your gut, which you feel is right, and the access to have quality ingredients that you can read, that you understand, and that are nutritious. And that is what I have found with working with so many books like this. If you go through there, you might notice that she uses eggs, she uses butter, she makes reference to things that, depending on where you are in your journey, you might be questioning exactly the ingredients you want to use. That is where you need to be, in my opinion. This isn't something where, there's a predefined, this is exactly what you have to eat. To me, the concept of plant-based journey, plant-based eating, however you want to look at it, what that comes down to is trusting your gut, trusting your internal compass, what is going on the inside, and saying, what does my body need now? 100 to 1, you are going to need vegetables. Obviously, fruits and vegetables are at the heart of all of this. If you get back to, what occurs in nature, what can you go out, what can you, find readily available as, right from the soil, right from the heart of the earth, it's going to be vegetables and fruit. They should be the staple, the base of every meal that you create, because again, why? It has one ingredient in. If you pick up a carrot, you're going to use a carrot. If you pick up okra, you're going to use okra. If you pick up whatever it is from cookbooks or from farmers markets, whatever you choose to use to motivate you for what's for dinner tonight, when you start with a fresh, wholesome, very nutritious ingredient, you're guaranteed to feel it inside and out. And to me, that's the beauty of plant-based living and what it's done for me over the past 3 decades. So whether this is your first time watching, or if you've been a fan and you've been building your cookbook club, your cookbook shelf along the way. I highly recommend that you take a look at this book that I have found and that I'm having a lot of fun with, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it too. Again, Misunderstood Vegetables by Becky Selingut. Hopefully, again, I'm saying that name right. I will put all the information in my article, where I'll have it listed below here, so you can go get more information on that and join me in creating your own cookbook shelf, giving you access to incredible recipes whenever you need them for every dinner you create from this point forward.